webinar on what's new in ReadyAPI 2.4. My name is Amy, and I am on the customer marketing team here at SmartBear, and I am joined by product owner Mike Giller and the leader of our solutions engineering team, Tamil Sanchez.
Hello.
Good morning, everybody.
So just some housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, so a copy of the recording will be made available in a couple days. All attendees are muted, so if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. To learn more about SoapUI Pro and ReadyAPI, you can visit our website, smartbear.com/ReadyAPI. And then I will be launching a poll with a couple questions on how you use ReadyAPI. So if you could give us your feedback, that would be really helpful. Additionally, at the end, we'll be asking you to answer a one-question exit survey to rate the content of this webinar so that we can improve and provide the most relevant and helpful content. And so before I pass this off to Mike and Tamil, I wanted to remind customers that our second annual user conference, SmartBear Connect, will be this October 29th and 30th in Boston. Early bird ticket pricing ends this Friday, June 15th. So if you're interested, I'll put the link in the chat so you can check it out and hopefully see you there. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass this along to Mike and Tamil.
All right, thank you very much, Amy. So let's go ahead with with the session here. This is very informal, right? Just for your notion, this is meant to expose you to the new features and functionalities, and maybe some of the business cases as to why we've added these enhancements. They're all for the best, right? They will help and enhance the way that you work with ReadyAPI. And if anybody has any questions about anything, please feel free to drop it down on the search box. Again, make it interactive. So if there's any, any specific questions or concerns of a particular feature, again, please feel free to let us know. So the first thing that we're going to see here is actually a very huge add, right, to the tree, the search tree within ReadyAPI itself, and it's basically we've added a search functionality which has been highly asked for, and this will basically help you traverse through all your test cases, test suites, test steps that you have built throughout the days and years with using our products. This will make it easy to navigate against, and again, will help your experience when building the tool. Again, it's a very quick change here. It's available within the project section and SoapUI. So if there's a particular API that you're looking for, you can very easily type it in and it'll appear. Same thing on the SoapUI side. If you're looking for a particular project or a particular test case, you will be able to see it fairly easily within the product. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Again, this is a huge add, especially if you've had test cases upon test cases over the years. Mike.
Yeah, I just wanted to add. So we've kind of continuously focused on usability throughout ReadyAPI. Definitely, this was one of the biggest feedbacks we've heard from customers is, let me search for stuff, because the more tests are created, the more APIs are there, the more tests against the APIs, it's an issue of scale. So this search is definitely something that has been asked for. We've tried to pepper it just about anywhere it made sense. So we added that to the projects tab. Last release, we added that in the preferences because we have a lot of preferences. You can easily find what you need. We also added that today, as Tamil shown in 2.4 in the SoapUI tab. So right now, it will search for contents within the navigator tree. So for your test steps, test cases, different names, you can filter it down and find out exactly the test assets you need. So please provide feedback. Hopefully you like it. If you have any further ideas to enhance, or even if there's something you don't see, let us know. So yeah, those are my 2 cents. Thanks, Tamil.
All right. So next is we did update the REST discovery dialog. It just makes it a better experience when you're using REST discovery to discover APIs behind either web applications, or if you're using it for other purposes like importing tests from other tools. It's just a more streamlined approach towards looking at the APIs when using the REST discovery feature. Again, if anybody has any specific questions about this, feel free to let us know.
So that feature, if you don't mind, Tamil, can you just show it just for a second? Because I feel that it's almost like an undervalued feature. So probably right now, the easiest way to kick this off is, so for REST discovery, just do file new project. We didn't add that into the wizards.
So there's a couple of different ways that you could get to it for those of you that are not aware of it. You could build a brand new project, and there's a REST discovery option right here. If you have existing projects, you could also go in, right-click on your projects, and use the discover option, and it should pop up.
Right. So at that point, if you don't mind, can you just go on that screen for a second? So if you ever have an API integrated behind something, right? Someone says, hey, I have an API, here's the integration. This feature really will help you understand traffic and then create tests from that. I use it here and there for troubleshooting. There's another way. So if you just show the dropdown for the proxy, so what we're showing you right now is a web interface where literally we built in a browser and we intercept HTTP traffic. We help you filter against APIs. But if you have a mobile phone, if you have some other, API to API kind of transaction, we can still intercept it through traffic. So again, if you have some unknown API traffic and you need to either troubleshoot or create a test against that unknown, this is a great feature to help you. So we made it more usable where you can literally capture transactions. So if you don't mind, show transactions. This is the biggest enhancement.
So just wanted to say here, thank you, Stu. So Stu, in the questions, but he says that he's already been using the search feature and it's helped tremendously.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, just show transactions for a second, because you did catch some. So the biggest enhancement now is you can literally see what you captured, filter it down, capture some more, and then once you're satisfied that you have the needed HTTP traffic, then you can does it generate services, but it'll generate your tests and then prep you for automated tests down the line.
Right. So the use case would be, let's say you're not familiar with the API, you interact with the web service or an API or a web application. You go to transactions, you don't find what you need. You could go back, navigate some more, and then you'll get some more results that you could, visualize within the tool. Right. So I executed an API call right now. I could go back. Now I have this XML, right, that I've captured. All right. Anything else, Mike, that you'd like to add here?
No, there's already a relevant question. So the question is, will it catch API calls that are internal? So that's the proxy feature. So you can proxy internal APIs against ReadyAPI, which is a standalone application that will work in your internal environment. So that would be, that would probably be the best way. So absolutely applies.
Perfect. All right, guys, the next thing that I think was really powerful is also it's a much more user-friendly, reader-friendly HTTP log. Hopefully everybody is familiar with the logs that we have available in ReadyAPI. They will help you debug APIs and any issues that you may be seeing within the tool, and not issues, but just debug your tests in general, right? So if we go into SoapUI and we interact with any API, let's see. You'll be able to identify those HTTP transactions under the logs, HTTP log, and now you can see that they're timestamped accordingly, right? So the whole request has one timestamp versus previously every single line had a timestamp, and it was a little difficult to read. Now we can see the whole HTTP message, understand what was sent and what we actually received from the service. All right, so next on the list is we updated reports. So we updated the reports to in a couple of different ways, right? We've updated it so that it's more visible when you run a test case. It used to be very, very hidden within the test cases or test suites or wherever you're running them from, and I'll show you that in just a moment. We've also updated the dialog within the report creation wizard, and also give you some more information about that. So let's take a look at it. ReadyAPI. Right, let's say we run a test against, or we already did, so let's actually run the whole test. The reports are not well, they used to only be available exclusively right here. As we all can see, that little box is really hard to find for those of you that are not familiar with. It's much more visible now up here on the top left. Okay, so whatever test cases or test suite you run, you click on this Run Report button, and the report dialog box will pop up. The next change is this field right here. This used to be a drop-down, and not everybody goes into the drop-down, and we're familiar with the different types of reports that we provided. So we don't just provide test case printable reports. We also provide JUnit style reports and data export reports, which are used a little more for automated purposes. Okay. Mike, any add-ons that you want to provide here?
No, just, I mean, you touched on a lot of them, but definitely I felt that the value just wasn't conveyed well about the different reporting, right? We have this actually very feature-rich report, and we have this, what I call printable report, that to me, like, you can save it in different formats. You can show it, save it as PDF, HTML, Excel, etc. So, you know, it's data that you would share with managers, with colleagues, with developers who are responsible for APIs. So bringing that forward as functionality of ReadyAPI, you know, we feel is very useful. And then as far as changing from drop-down to a radio button, you know, the second probably most common use of reporting is within automation as well. So we just wanted to let you know that there's definitely data exports and JUnit style reports, which are very common in CI/CD applications. So just be aware, we'll talk about automation later within this webinar as well. But we have very feature-rich reporting that previously was a little tough to, you know, find with just one little icon. So now we have a couple of icons and more descriptives. You know, options for reports. So,
all right. So moving on. These are major enhancements that we've added to allow you people with, you know, getting APIs from different sources, and with the growth of Swagger and Open API specification, and with our new product SwaggerHub, or a newer product SwaggerHub, we just thought that it'd be really important to also link and give people options to pull APIs from different locations. Prior to this release, you were able to only pull public APIs that were hosted within SwaggerHub. And for those of you that are not aware, SwaggerHub is basically a design and documentation portal to help users collaborate in the design and documentation of APIs. It's a SmartBear product. And you are now able to connect directly to private APIs that have hosted definitions on SwaggerHub. Again, features really, really intuitive. And just like you start any other APIs, right, when you're either in projects or dashboards, you will be able to, you know, basically use import from SwaggerHub option. And the dialog box looks like this, right? You push in your username and password, and then you say, you know, what APIs you want to search for in here. So if you, let's say Smart Store, again, these are private APIs that I have hosted, or they're both public. We could actually find something else. Let's say Pet Store. I'm sure I have a pet store that's hosted privately. And you can now introduce these APIs into your project section. So hopefully that makes sense. Seems like there's a couple of questions that are coming in. So why don't we take a moment to make sure that we answer those. There's Laura is asking, can we generate reports that just show errors? So today, there's an option for data export, which will allow you to specify specific things. I don't believe errors are one of the specific things that you could show, but the overall reports will give you what you want. If you want something very specific, you could use something like data sync. And I think Mike wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have detailed reports that literally show you the detail for the error. So we'll show you, for example, what assertions failed, what was the expected value, what was the actual value, the full request, full response. So that level of detail is absolutely in every kind of the report, whether it's, you know, out in Jenkins or whether it's a PDF report. So we definitely cover errors, but we'll give you everything, right? So if you have a lot of tests that passed, we'll let you know that they passed as well.
Right. We have another question. How does the export report look like? There's two versions of it. There is either a CSV version or an XML version. So you could get them in those two different formats. I hope that answers your question. Format could be CSV. Yes, that looks like that was an add-on to that original question. So again, export reports can be exported in XML or CSV. Ritesh is asking, is there any way to cut out some of the things from the report that is generated? Not today. Not today. There's nothing that you could cut directly out. If you want something more specific, I mean, you could probably use a data sync or something similar.
Yeah, I mean, Ritesh, there's a template that you could access. It's like a Jasper Reports template, but it's a mess. Like honestly, every time I personally change it, it just breaks. If you think there's some extra data that shouldn't be there, let me know, because it might then, right now I'm responsible for the product, so it might be interesting to reevaluate that on the product side. But yeah, so let me know.
All right. So continuing on, just a little bit of information, right? We've already talked about a couple of different features. I'm glad that we're getting some feedback. Definitely keep it coming, guys. Let's go ahead and jump back up to the PowerPoint and jump onto the next option. So so some other minor changes that we did. We now support RAML 1.0 versus a more advanced 2.0 version. We've improved ReadyAPI performance and Groovy script execution. So now ReadyAPI overall performs much better. The Groovy executions also have better performances. We've made some changes to composite projects. So now whatever file names are modified within ReadyAPI tool will also be reflected on the composite project directory. Okay. And then the required attributes for REST requests is set to true when you add a request to your service manually. So maybe we could take a look at this. This is actually something that will help you when building services without having a definitions or something like that. So for example, if I go back to ReadyAPI and I say that I'm going to add a brand new API, maybe from an endpoint, say this is a get method, and say let's say that I add a resource, my API. Then as soon as I add this, it should automatically generate a parameter for my particular API that I just added with the required field for that query string, right? So here's my query parameter, right? API key was automatically generated, and the actual parameter has been set to required. So that, again, that basically helps when you build out tests, when you add APIs and you're sharing them across your teams, your team will be notified automatically as to what parameters were initially used to build it out and if they're required or not. If you added some parameters that are not required, you could go back and uncheck this, and it will no longer be a required parameter.
So, yeah, and honestly, the only reason the only difference in required and not required for query string specifically, so if you remove 1, 2, 3, you will still have the query string parameter sent with no value, right? So if it's not required, then an empty value will not be sent in the call. So if you just show the raw request, because then you can see what's sent over the wire. Right, so here you can see API key is empty, but it's still there as a parameter. So the only difference not required is it will not be even there. So yeah, so but we feel that if you're defining parameters, then they should be sent by default. So again, if you have any feedback, please provide that in the Q&A.
All right. So moving on. So these are some enhancements that we have provided for newer users, right? Users that so make sure that we have the right guidance within the product, that they're making the best use of our tools. So this is just a quick hint, right? So we have more flexible use data and required parameters, scripts, set up and change environments. So just the environments feature in all has always been there. Again, if you're not using it, you should definitely make use of it, because this is where you could set up different, again, parameters, scripts, properties for particular environments. And I'll show you that in just a minute. But what was interesting here, that we've actually added a feature that allows you to make sure that there's an alphabetical order in case that you have extensive amounts of environments within your tooling, right? So let's go back to ReadyAPI, right? The environments feature can be found on the top right-hand side. And again, it's meant for you to start building profiles for all the different for all the different environments that you have internally. Okay, let me pick a project that has environments. Here it is. So for example, I have localhost, IP, QA, dev environments, and all these, as they become extensive, they'll be hard to look for. So you could click on this new button that we have over here, and we'll sort it alphabetically for you. And again, for those of you that are not aware of this feature, again, it's really powerful so that you can reuse your tests across all your environments versus creating tests every time you have a new endpoint that you have to hit it, and the test being the same. So basically the way that you would use it is you would go into your functional tests, okay, and you would switch the environments that you want to test against. And these are for users that haven't been, again, using the environments feature. Giller, anything to add there?
No, not for the environments. There was another one about the events. Did we talk about that, or is that we skip it quickly?
I believe that's coming up.
Okay.
If it doesn't, we'll come back to it, but I'm sure.
I'm also furiously answering. There's a lot of questions in the Q&A, so it's some great questions there. They're pretty specific, so.
Okay. Yeah. If you feel the need that we have to show anything, again, if anybody wants to see anything, feel free to let us know, and Giller, speak up and let me know. Mm-hmm. All right, so we just talked about the environments feature. The outline editor now supports special characters and emoji. The outline editor basically is a better way to visualize the request and response. Again, for those of you that haven't taken advantage of it, this is one of the pro functionalities that we have, right? So usually you get something that looks like this, in XML or JSON, and the outline editor will outline it in a much easier to understand way. Okay, for something that's more payload heavy, like a SOAP call, we should be able to do very similar with the whole JSON and XML responses, right? So if I execute this SOAP call, you can see the outline editor has all the elements, all the nodes in an outline format. Again, much easier to read. And the enhancement here was that we now support special characters and emojis. We've also did some enhancements to the get data dialog box. Again, for those of you that don't know what this is a very powerful feature that will help you build end-to-end test cases and help you pass values from one response to the next request, or pull values from anywhere in your project. Again, for those of you that don't know what it is, it basically allows you to right-click, and I'll show you. So right-click on either a value. There's different ways, different places where you can right-click, but you can right-click, let's say in this parameter, use the get data option, and it'll open a dialog box that will allow you to pick a value to pass over from anywhere within your project. The new feature that has been added here is when you search, right? When you search for something, let's say, again, Google, or let's say something that exists like test suite. If you need to clear, you have the little X button that will allow you to clear really quickly. So that's the new feature that we have added here. And again, it's a usability feature. So it just makes the user navigate through our dialog boxes much quicker when they're building tests and they have limited amount of time.
Yeah, and this whole get data functionality is phenomenal if you haven't explored it yet, because it literally lets you pass data through. And in the last release and this release together, we focused a lot on that usability. So for example, you can now resize columns, that will auto-save it. So if you have long fields, if you have long test names, that will auto-save, help you filter it down again, the search functionality is there if you have a lot of tests. And but the beauty of it is you link a field once and it will propagate a value from another step or from a custom property, and then you'll basically have dynamic API tests. Again, if you feel that there's further usability or further enhancement around that feature that's still possible, let us know. Thanks.
All right, so we actually hit the jackpot here. For those of you that have been using SoapUI Pro and have been trying to automate, maybe use our command line editors, we've made some improvements there. But most of all, we've added a native Jenkins plugin so that you can connect your tests together. And this will, save you a lot of setup time on the Jenkins side. Let's go ahead and show the feature. Actually, let's move over to Jenkins. Actually, I have to boot my Jenkins up, so give me 1 second. And Mike, if the thought process behind this, right?
Yeah.
It's easier access, easier up and
absolutely. I mean, so this one is created more. This was feedback from automation people, right? People who may not even live in SoapUI, but they're responsible for automation strategy, for pipelines, for continuous integration, for deployment into production, etc. So the whole idea behind Jenkins is make it easier to automate. We definitely had ways to do that, but it kind of was tied to ReadyAPI. We made the command line a little more intuitive, which we'll show in a bit as well. But it's native in Jenkins. We've also actually, we worked with Jenkins and we uploaded the plugin into the plugin store, right? So you can literally go into Jenkins plugin manager, search for SoapUI or SmartBear, find a relevant plugin and just install it. So the installation should be fairly simple, and as Tamil will show you in a little bit, the configuration is much simpler than even command line as well. And local instance of Jenkins takes a little bit of time to boot up. So
here it is. All right. So what you would do is you would, navigate to manage your Jenkins, then look for the
plugins. Yep.
And then let's say available. Mine is already installed, but you can basically just look for SoapUI Pro, and it should pop up. See, mine is already installed, so let's go to installed. Say SoapUI Pro, and there you have it. Okay, and again, this will give you a dialog box in your job process that will basically, just have all the options available for you. What projects you want to input, what what else you want to put in, like the projects, again, the test suite that you want to run test case. And this will also auto-generate a JUnit style report that will be saved in Jenkins for historical views.
Right, and that's where the configuration is much simpler, because all the report handling is much more intuitive with this plugin. Before, you had to do a post build action to get the report, so now it's a lot more native and within Jenkins. So actually, like, I had a question about reporting for failures within Jenkins. If something fails right now, you will be able to then drill down and see some of the failures as well, because our reporting just is parsed and then presented within Jenkins result itself.
Right. So the next on the line here, what if you're not using Jenkins? What if you're using, TeamCD, Bamboo, any other CI/CD tool, or you just want to automate your test from ReadyAPI from SoapUI, some other way? We still have the command line editor available, and there's also some enhancements in there. Okay, so if and again, for those of you that haven't seen it, this is the first time. The way that you get to the command line or the test runner wizard that we like to call, which basically will generate the command line arguments for you, so you could push into your automation systems. All you need to do is right click, and say launch test runner, and it can be done at the project level, test suite, or test case. And the new enhancement is that we have the get command line button right here. So instead of having to launch and copy the command from there, you can actually copy directly, copy to clipboard, and now you could use, your automation scripts to build onto this, or your CI/CD tools to have, execute SOAP UI tests. Again, for those of you that don't have much experience in this, you will need an instance of ReadyAPI installed on those environments. So keep that, in the back of your heads. But again, it's much easier to get to this, and this is already pre-configured with, what is the execution doing, right? You've selected what test suites, what test cases are being executed, where to find test runner, right? What reports will be generated, and all these things are also now automatically defaulted to some default settings, so you'll get something up front. If you want to go back and change any of these or change where the reports are saved, you can definitely go back and do that.
Right, and this is there's actually a lot of great questions in the Q&A about Jenkins plugin. I still haven't answered all of them, but the Jenkins plugin is kind of the most straightforward thing we could do. We didn't want to overwhelm the options. So if you do want some additional options, like one of the questions was tags, right? Maybe you want to filter everything you run by a certain specific tag, or you want to, I don't know, override by a property, or some more advanced stuff, you can still do it through command line. So right now, the Jenkins plugin, we wanted to keep it straightforward. We didn't want to just overwhelm with fields. It's pretty straightforward. Just, here's the test, run it, generate the reports. If you want to automate within other tools, like Bamboo came up, then this command line is still a very easy way to integrate. And then if you want to do some additional filtering or do some advanced parameters, then again, command line will help you do that today.
Awesome. So moving on, some other enhancements. I think this answers a question that I saw in the chat. Do we support databases? Yes, we've always supported databases pretty well. We've just added a new feature, which basically gives you capability to look at the raw interaction with the database. That way you could, if you have like dynamic values within your query, you could see, the actual strings, the query strings directly on the raw request. And if you'd like to see that, again, it's a really quick show, so I don't mind jumping in here really quick and maybe picking out one of our, here it is. So this is a database execution to one of the databases, right, that I have internally. We get back a response. It's all in XML. We convert them into XML for those of you that weren't available. So the two changes that we've added is now we have a table view. Okay, you could view the actual results in a table, just like you would natively do on a database. And on the request side, you can see the actual query that was instantiated. So my query is really simple, but again, if you had dynamic variables in here, they would be changed. So very quick example, let's say that I have custom property alt value, I'll say 5, right? And then I change this to look at that value instead of having a static value in there. I should be able to run this, get back the same exact results. And if you look at the raw, you'll see that 5 was what was passed in. This was what was evaluated from my string. So hopefully that
everyone see his use of get data and how easy it was. Just saying.
All right, guys. Support for SSL and the MQTT plugin. So for those of you in the IoT space, we have a support for a couple of different things via plugins for a couple of different protocols like MQTT, co-op, WebSockets. Specific to the MQTT, we've added SSL options. So now you can add your certificates and make sure that you have a secure connection. For the Swagger schema compliance assertion, we have added the browse option. Previously, you only had the option to go in there and add an endpoint that had a Swagger definition. Now, and let me go back into ReadyAPI. If you have an API, REST API call defined by Swagger, and you wanted to validate that the response that you're getting back is, compliance against the schema Swagger has defined, you can go into compliance and standards, look for Swagger compliance assertion, add, and this is a new add, right? This is a new feature. Now you could browse and point to a local file, a local Swagger file, or a local OpenAPI spec file that will, give you the validation points for your response.
Yeah, and this is a feature, right? But there's a holistic story here, because what very often happens, and trust me, all too often, is there's a Swagger specification, and then the API gets built, API gets enhanced, it grows, etc., etc. So the validation of what API actually does against specification, like Swagger or OAS, is crucial. So hopefully this assertion will help you validate that a specification is followed in your actual API tests. And if this whole like Swagger OAS is completely foreign to you, and you just have endpoints, I would strongly urge you, because there's a lot of discovery, self-documentation, SDK generation, and just a general API adoption that APIs would benefit from when they adopt a Swagger specification. So there's definitely more to the story, but as Tamil said, at least for validation, we're helping automate the validation against that as well.
That's right. That's right. There's a way bigger story behind Swagger and the way we drive things with SwaggerHub and ReadyAPI and the whole story. So if anybody's interested in that, definitely feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to, have those conversations. All right, so continuing on with the new features in ReadyAPI, new enhancements, we've added a preferences option dialog so that you can discard past results within the loop property globally, right? So last release, we added this field within data source, within the data source loop that basically discarded results that passed, right? So if you go into data-driven loop right here, we've added this feature, and it becomes a hassle if you have a lot of data sources and all your test cases, and you want to globally check it or uncheck this option. So you can actually go into preferences, go into test case properties. If you can't find it like I can, just type it in here, test case, default test case options, there it is. We now have that option globally available down here. So I can check it for everything or uncheck it for everything within my workspace. Again, it just makes it easier to manage these things. And for those of you that weren't aware of this at all, this was added a couple of versions ago, I believe. This will allow you to, globally add some options to your projects, whether that be maintaining a GPU session, again, aborting tests if fails occurs. So it's like stopping the actual test case. So these are things that we do have available here. Again, ease of management, right? Ease of maintenance. All right. So let's go back and let's jump into LoadUI now. So there was a major change in LoadUI, which basically gives users more detailed information about their test execution, their performance test execution. We've actually added 90th percentile, 95th, 98th, for those who want to be very specific to our metrics. And we've also made some changes within the reports itself, with the global reports of a performance test, to make the results easier to view and give them more concise information. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. And Killer, I don't know if there's more to that story while
so Tamil's about to show this feature. It's a bunch of new numbers in the load test report. There's been a lot of kind of engine work involved in the data collection, gathering, etc. So hopefully you'll see, even better numbers, even better data. You're going to see more metrics around holistic, percentiles. Because what we offered before is in statistics, you can see the percentiles at runtime graphed, or you can sort of get, the overall averages. But if you wanted to get the 98th percentile, which if you're really heavy into performance testing, that's a really good bad performance indicator without, without getting all the outliers, then now we have that one single field in the report for you. So what Tamil is showing right now is the overall kind of second by second percentile. And then later he'll show how to get the same data kind of as a summary in the field as well.
Right. So you could get, the second by second metrics here, like Mike said. But if you want the overall overview, you could go into the reports option, run the report, and
right. Because here you can't tell, the you can't tell, the summary. So
right. So my report section isn't configured correctly. So let's go ahead and configure it. All right.
Go against 2.4.
I think that's what it was. I wasn't looking at the version.
And then take out the last reports because you have redundancy. Perfect.
All right.
So if you encounter the same error, now you know what to do. It's in the preferences in the ReadyAPI tab.
It happens when you upgrade sometimes. So make sure those preferences are pointed to the right place. All right, now we could run.
Oh, we didn't talk about custom Java libraries, did we?
So we didn't. So my report configuration is a little off. Not sure what's going on there, but
you'll have to trust us.
Yeah. So Java libraries, that's actually a very good point. We do now support custom Java libraries, which will give you the option to add them as part of our code completion option in here as well. So if you have custom libraries that you've been using for your scripts all along, you can now add them natively into our tool. And I believe there was another use case for this that we were talking about.
Well, that's what got me thinking of it. So before, if you had a custom Java library, you drop it in bin.axt, and then you upgrade, and that changes the folder structure. So another use case now is if you have these Java dependencies, you can then point to them here in the preferences, and then when you upgrade from 2.42, when we release a higher version, the next version, the version after that, then the custom libraries will not have to be changed on every update and upgrade. So that's another major use case we see for it.
That's right. So hopefully everybody sees advantages in that, and remember that they should also be available in the code completion if their Java libraries are pertaining to some Java classes or Java that you're using within your scripts. All right. So moving on to Service V. Okay, so Service V is our service virtualization tool as part of the ReadyAPI platform. The major change here that we've added is just we've added an option for the JMS virtual services for default responses to none. And this will basically help you simulate, empty responses back from your virtual JMS services. Hopefully that makes sense. I think that brings us to an end of what we wanted to show today. We did want to show you this slide and make sure we answer any questions that you may have outstanding, which I am seeing a little red flag on. So let's go ahead and go to the questions. And again, this opens it up for anybody else. If anybody else has questions, please bring them up. If there's anything that you did not see that you hope to see, let us know. And we'll definitely try to talk to those. So Antonis is asking, the custom library part, would this persist if you have the jars on distribute agents? So when you say, can you expand a little more about that? Are the jar files themselves on distribute agents, or are you talking about like performance testing agents?
Yeah, I had the same question because the agents, I'm assuming you mean LoadUI agent, but you could also mean, CI. In automation, we always see kind of a lot of agents as well. So our jar. So no. Okay. So he specified that the jar files are in bin.ext and distributed on load agents. So no, right now that does not happen automatically. And even with the preference that Tamil was showing, that probably would not happen either. So the one workaround that comes to mind right now is if you put them in some UNC path that's reachable by agents and by your machine. If you put the libraries there, then I believe the agents do pick up your settings file, and then they will look for that folder with the custom jar libraries.
Right. And alternatively, you'll have to just put the jar files in the agent in the distributed agent as well. So today, those are the use cases there. Any other questions come to mind? Anything about the tool or anything else? All right. Hope this session was super beneficial for you. I'm going to turn it back to Amy now, guys. And please definitely fill out our feedback. This is a great way to make us work better.
Yeah. And I wanted to thank everyone who provided questions and feedback as well. Thanks a lot for the participation.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today to learn about the latest release in ReadyAPI. And thanks so much to Tamil and Mike for showing us all these new features. We hope you learned a lot. And before you go, like Tamil said, if you could just answer our feedback poll, that would be great. Hope you have a good rest of your day, everyone.